Good morning, everyone. History is littered with, well, people who want to censor information and hide information. Nazi Germany did it, and censorship in Nazi Germany was extreme and strictly enforced by the governing Nazi Party, and specifically by Joseph Goebbels and his Reich Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda. Right? Censorship within Nazi Germany included control of all forms of mass communication, which included newspaper, music, literature, radio, and film. The same body also produced and disseminated their own literature, which was solely devoted to furthering Nazi ideas and myths. Anti-Semitism lay at the core of their work, and including 1940 films as The Eternal Jew, the ministry promoted the cult of Adolf Hitler by sponsoring early films such as The Triumph of the Will and 1934 Rally and The Victory of Faith made in 1933. Anti-Semitism. That's interesting that anti-racism reared its ugly head, right? And now it's being used as an excuse to be racist. Very interesting. Here is Nazi book burnings, another example. They would remove things. I found it interesting that the first books they burned were of Karl Marx. So that's interesting. Here's censorship in the Soviet Union. Censorship of images was widespread in the Soviet Union. Visual censorship was exploited in a political context, particularly during the political purges of Joseph Stalin, where the Soviet government attempted to erase some purged figures from the Soviet history and took measures which included altering images and destroying film. The USSR curtailed access to pornography as well, which was specifically prohibited by Soviet law. And the water commissioner, there's an image here. It says the image taken by the Moscow Canal was taken when Nikolai Yezhov, sorry, I forgot that one, was water commissioner. After he fell from power, he was arrested, shot, and his image removed by the censors. Well, I wonder what the Parks Canada founders did. Here's Blacklock's reporter. They say, staff at Parks Canada begin purge of historical figures deemed offensive or colonist. According to hashtag Canadian Freedom of Information memos, all plaques will need to be reviewed. All plaques will need to be reviewed. Let's revise that history, right? Like this guy falls from power, you just take him, you shoot him, and then you make sure all the internet images of him are removed and any that he's in may be replaced with his current stand-in. We can do that. No problem. No problem. Ministry of Truth, forever altering the current past, right? And what else did the Nazis do, the brown shirts do, etc.? Well, they got rid of the police. They sure did. And here's the CTV News, the Pravda, saying, majority of Canadians believe systemic racism is a serious problem within the RCMP, poll finds, right? Big defund the police on CTV News. It's very interesting. If you're not paying attention, if you don't know history, you will be doomed to repeat history, right? Anti-Semitism is an awful close similarity to anti-racism, isn't it? It's a little uncomfortably close for me. Yes, it is. Yes, there were two elections yesterday. Scott Moe was a big win for Saskatchewan Party. The Saskatchewan election delivers a historic win for Saskatchewan Party, decisive defeat for the NDP. Scott Moe wins a majority, and I thought I had the seats highlighted here. Hold on. Here it is. Though thousands of mail-in ballots have yet to be counted, the votes that have been tallied put the Saskatchewan Party ahead in 50 seats, leaving the opposition New Democrats with just 11. So Scott Moe continues his governance. So congratulations, Mr. Moe. He's pretty popular out there. I'm not as confused by Mr. Moe as I am by Mr. Kenney. I'm very confused by Mr. Kenney. Here is the election for Max Bernier's riding, or the riding Max Bernier was going for, York Centre, and Bernier got 642 votes. It was won by the Liberal. Yeah, they swept. Hard eye roll. Unbelievable, right? They got 8,253 votes. The Conservative came in a second place, and they got 7,552 votes. If you add Bernier's votes, and that means all of the people who voted for Bernier would come in and vote for the Conservative candidate, you'd still not beat the Liberal. And Kean made the point that you would be in recount territory. But I mean, what good's a recount if you lost, right? Like, you still lost. I don't know. And I can tell you, if Mr. Bernier is not on that ballot, I'm not voting for the Conservative. Sorry. I just don't trust them. I just don't. I think they're going to do exactly the same thing as the Liberals. And I think that they're going to do it maybe in a more transparent way, but fundamentally, I don't think they're going to be any different. Why would I think that they're going to be any different, right? Like they're already peeling off the distinctions that they're making aren't good enough. They're allowing the UN, they're allowing the Liberals to set the tone of all of this. They're allowing the UN to call the shots on a lot of decisions. They're allowing the WHO to call the shots on a lot of decisions. And I don't agree with any of the moves that they're making. So Kanzak, no, the movement of people, the general policies that Mr. O'Toole is pushing forward, I just don't trust. They're gonna end up at exactly the same place we're at now, which is fiscally irresponsible, the borders unmanaged, the immigration too much for what the economy can handle at this point in time, because we still need to dig out of the hole that we created ourselves for COVID. And so I wouldn't vote for the Conservative. That's a long way to say that I wouldn't vote for the Conservative. I just don't trust them. Sorry. I just don't trust them. There's not enough there for me to trust, right? They're not talking about the right issues. If they're not even talking about the right issues, if it's a battle to get them on the right issue, then they're not even in the right ballpark. Why would I bother? It's hard. And the point isn't that I shouldn't even try. The point is that you've tried, we've tried, people have tried, and they're not interested. And they're so not interested that people in the party are leaving the party because well, and Max Bernier is the example, but he's leaving the party because they're not willing to engage in the things that matter. They're just playing a pantomime game. They're just playing the counter, the center to the liberal far left. And there is no right wing. There is no populist party. And the populist party was created by Mr. Bernier. And, well, Baljit Bawa got 271, 1.1% of the vote. Bernier did a bit better with the 3.6, but, it takes time to build a party. It takes time to get in there. So I don't think that the Conservatives would have won this had Max Bernier not run. And I guess these things take time, and especially in Toronto Centre. Like nobody expected Mr. Bernier to win. So just making sure everybody understands that. That's not a big disappointment. Everybody pretty much knew. I was saying yesterday they're probably going to sweep it, right? But they shouldn't sweep it. They shouldn't have. They shouldn't have by all rights. But here we are. Here's Steve Pakin and says, Conservatives must be asking tonight, could we have won York Centre had Maxime Bernier not run? Liberal Party had 2.7 point lead over the CPC party, the Conservative Party. But Bernier's People's Party is capturing 3.9% of the vote. Presumably some of that would have gone to the CPC. Nope. And not unless they were not the CPC. Right? That's fundamentally what I'm saying. Pundit Class says the budget update doesn't even have a budget to update. Never mind a fiscal anchor. And Trudeau can't say when the crisis of a 99.8% survival rate will finally be over. Our democracy is broken. The government has gone rogue and is using the boogeyman for cover. Yes, I completely agree. And this is Miss Raj, and she is the HuffPost Canada's bureau chief. And she says, Prime Minister says the budget update won't have a fiscal anchor. Suggests one coming after the crisis is over. When the crisis is over. When COVID's done. My brother texted me and said, I'll see you after, or we're not coming up until COVID changes. I was like, COVID's expected to change? Okay, I guess we'll see you soon. Anyway, John Walsh is saying, this is a disgusting dereliction of duty by the government, by this government. Were they capable, they should be ashamed. Yes, if they were capable of being ashamed, they should be ashamed. Here's Pierre Poilievre. I'm going to let this run. This is a longer clip than usual. I'm going to let this run because, we're going to listen to all of Mr. Poilievre's, I think. We're going to listen to all of Mr. Poilievre's stuff. This is unbelievable. And it gets more unbelievable. It really does. Okay, here we go. Oh, sound.
Approximately approximately 6 different gathering rust fiscal anchors that this Prime Minister has cut loose from his ship. Remember, only $10 billion the deficit, and only for 3 years. The deficit to debt to GDP ratio will never rise, and we will never be downgraded. All those anchors have since been abandoned. In fact, we haven't had a budget in well over a year, the longest period ever. So I asked the Minister, what is Canada's new fiscal anchor?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me tell you what our government's economic policy is right now. Our economic policy is to do what is necessary to fight COVID and to support Canadian workers while we're doing it. And let me just say, Mr. Speaker, our policy is working. 76% of jobs have been now recovered in Canada since the depths of the COVID recession versus only 52% in the United States. We're going to keep on doing what we're doing because it works, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
It works to make sure Canadians can't work. In fact, we have the highest unemployment in the G7, higher than the United States. And as for all the programs, we support the wage subsidy, the emergency benefits to Canadians, the emergency loans to businesses, but they only account for $175 billion of the $380 billion deficit. In other words, the majority of the money is not going to everyday Canadians. If it were, every household would have $40,000. That's their share of the deficit. But the money is going missing from the time it leaves to the government to the time it goes out to the economy. So where is all that money? Is it at the bottom of the sea with those missing fiscal anchors?
Yes, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. Sorry, my mouse is being... Okay. Sorry, that's a small interlude from this little rap thing here. Oh, this is frustrating. Sorry, guys. So I switched over to this mouse, and it's difficult to manage some days. I'm just getting used to it. So there you go. I apologize for that little interlude. Ms. Freeland says the fiscal update, before we didn't start, the fire started. The fiscal, not the fiscal update. The spending, what our spending plan is to keep helping Canadians. That's because it works. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And this is a self-inflicted wound. The shutdown of the economy was inflicted by the government, and they're ignoring a lot of the data, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But these fiscal anchors that were promised, and Mr. Poilievre talked about the fiscal anchors at the beginning of his remarks there, saying, "What is our new fiscal anchor?" And the fiscal anchor was pivoted to say, "We're going to look after Canadians." They don't know how they're going to pay for it. They don't know how, long term, much it's going to cost. They don't know what criteria the end of this crisis looks like, and they're not interested in delivering a budget. Never mind meaningful numbers with a fiscal anchor, meaning this is in order for an equation to work, you have to have all the numbers, right? This plus this or minus this equals this, right? So you have to have that bit of information to figure out how they're planning on or timeline on repayment or how much this could possibly balloon to, but they're not interested. They don't care. They're just going to keep spending and going to accuse anybody who accuses them of or asks them to justify their spending. Well, they're going to shut them down. They're going to shut them down. Okay, this is going back to documents, and it says Ethics Committee shuts down efforts to acquire speaking contract involving Trudeau's wife. This passed before prorogation, and now it didn't. And the reason it didn't is crazy. Here we go. The House of Commons Ethics Committee has voted against a motion to obtain all records related to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his wife, Sophie Gregory Trudeau's speaking engagement since October 14, 2008, when the Prime Minister became an elected official. The Conservative-backed motion, introduced by MP Michael Barrett, would have required Speaker Spotlight, the agency that coordinated speaking opportunities between Trudeau and his family, and We Charity to hand over all materials showing an indication of the fee provided, any expense that were reimbursed into the name of the company or organization, person, or entity booking it. An earlier iteration of the motion, introduced in July, was passed with the support of the Conservatives, NDP, and Bloc Québécois members, but the documents were never provided to committee due to the prorogation of Parliament. So it passed, Parliament prorogued, and they didn't supply the documents. 4 Liberal MPs and 1 Bloc Québécois MP on the Ethics Committee voted against the new motion on Monday, overruling the 3 Conservative MPs and 1 NDP that voted in favor of it. The motion was amended a number of times, first to remove the Prime Minister's brother and mother from the list, then to provide more time for the organization to retrieve the documents, and finally to ensure the documents were kept private once released. So here is the play: delay, and then stuff them. Right? And they made them jump through the hoop of being humiliated and losing, making the concessions of, okay, we won't ask about the mother and brother. We won't ask about, because remember when they were talking about can't prove familial relations? And he's like, that's his mother. Birth mother. They're related by birth. We don't need the ethics commissioner to confirm that. But they've gone through the humiliation of repealing that. No, we don't need that. We don't need... We'll keep the documents private, and we'll give you more time, right? Because the committee's talking, oh, we can't possibly do this because of COVID. They're using this as cover. It's BS. But not only was it not enough to go through all of that humiliation, they still didn't get it anyway, because listen to how the vote happened. NDP ethics critic Charlie Angus said the Bloc's support felt engineered. As sitting member Mary Helen Girardou, oh no, I've got that wrong. I thought it was Girardou. Might be. I'm going to leave that. I'm terrible at saying names. I apologize, Marie Helen. And anyway, she left the meeting minutes before the vote and was replaced by her colleague, Julie Vignola. Sorry if I got that wrong. Bloc Québécois House leader Alain Théran later said in French that Vignola cast her vote against the motion due to a translation problem. Oh, shucks. We can't do it again. You know, all that wrangling. Oh, we just can't rewrite it. Translation issue. My goodness. Angus didn't buy it. It would be ridiculous to suggest at the last minute, just as the vote was about to happen, that Madame Gaudreau, I think that's right. I think that one's right. More right. Okay, got up, walked out, and someone walked in who didn't know what the vote was about, said Angus. On an interview with ctvnews.ca. Barrett said the Liberals have spent weeks stonewalling the committee's work to get to the bottom of the We Charity investigation and other ethics-related controversies. You want to hold these people accountable? You want to hold them accountable? Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. They are not above parlor tricks and games, okay? Liberal Minister of Procurement says revealing hundreds of secret government contracts would threaten Canadians' lives. Listen to the tone on this woman. We're going to listen to it until stop it. Here we go.
We are in the middle of a second wave. We are in the middle of negotiations, and we are in the middle of our contracting. And therefore, if this motion passes, our disclosure, our relationships with our suppliers is brought into the full-fledged public eye, and our suppliers will be hesitant to do business with us. As I have explained, many stakeholders reached out over the weekend, including vaccine suppliers, to express this concern.
Make no mistake, this is a direct threat. This is a threat, right? Like, she is saying, if you do this, it is going to have consequences, right? Like, this is mom saying, I'm really disappointed that you're even asking that question, right? Seriously, the tone, everything. Look at the body language, right? She's ready to come over that table. She is going to read you the riot act. You better get up early enough, right? She's going to be upset. And here's Pfizer. Vaccine maker Pfizer raises concerns about unintended consequences of possible pandemic probe in Canada. We don't want unintended consequences. The Conservative motion would order the government to turn over to the House of Commons Health Committee all records on a raft of issues related to the government's handling of the pandemic. That includes the purchase of personal protective equipment, medical devices, and pharmaceuticals. In a letter to Health Canada, Pfizer said it wants to know how its commercial secrets will be protected. Commercial secrets? Like, I don't think they're asking for the recipe of the vaccine. I mean, maybe if they are, I'm more happy about that than them not asking about the ingredients, I suppose. Back to this. The motion is expected to pass with support from the federal NDP and the Bloc, who have insisted that there is sufficient protection for industry while accusing the Liberals of stirring fears. I think that's probably accurate. Back to this. In a letter to the senior Health Canada officials obtained by the Canadian press, Pfizer Canada President Cole Pinot says his company is concerned about the likely unintended consequences of such a review. Yesterday, I was talking about how they were worried that they were going to have their reputation besmirched by having this information released. And now they're talking about how the likely unintended consequences of such a review. I think it's really interesting. They're trying lots of different things to see what works with the public, what gets the public's sympathy, right? Back to this. Pinot specifically mentions a requirement in the motion that the government produce documents related to the production and purchase of a vaccine for COVID-19. Is that problematic? If that's problematic, then now I'm back to being concerned. He goes on to say that while the company is seeking legal advice, it wants to hear from Health Canada what process will be used to vet sensitive information before it's released to the committee. We are deeply concerned with the implications and likely unintended consequences should this motion receive the support of enough parliamentarians. Pinot wrote to Health Canada Assistant Deputy Minister Pierre Soberin. Sorry if I've got that wrong. Scroll down a little bit. The release of technically or commercially sensitive information may have deeply damaging and unpredictable effects on Pfizer for the development program, she wrote. Protection for scientific and commercial secrets and a promise to consult companies affected by the probe would provide manufacturers like Pfizer the confidentiality assurances we should expect from the government. Confidentiality. If I'm putting this in my body, I'm not just trusting Pfizer because the government trusts them, right? Remember we? Yeah, no. Pfizer's concerns about the proposed probe reflect those raised in recent days by other industry players, including Canadian manufacturers and exports, which represents thousands of companies in Canada. So they're saying, oh yeah, totally legit, totally legit. Here's MSNBC. They say Liberals face probe into pandemic response after losing House vote. So there will be a probe, and here's the CTV article on it. Motion to study Fed's COVID-19 response passes despite Liberal objections. In a show of opposition solidarity, the Conservative motion requesting a health committee study into the federal government's COVID-19 response and the disclosure of what could be thousands of pages of pandemic documents passed on Monday despite Liberal objections. This move to dig deeper into the government's handling of the ongoing health crisis comes despite concerns from Public Service Procurement Minister Anita Anand and Health Minister Patty Haydu about the scope and implications of the motion. The Liberals have argued that the middle of the second wave is not the time to evaluate what went wrong during the first wave. I say again, they can't use this as an excuse. They can't. Like, this is 826 cases, 821, 978, and in the same dates, or roughly those dates, there was 6 deaths, 9 deaths, 7 deaths, right? It's not appropriate to say, well, you know, all those people are dying, and so we can't possibly tell you because more people might die. No, you should be responsible and be able to respond to that, regardless of which wave we're in. Like saying, oh no, there's a boogeyman right behind there, I can't possibly. You know, it might work when you're 6, right? You could probably get away with that when you're 6 because you could distract them and they'd forget. But I mean, maybe the public has a collective intelligence of about a 6-year-old. I don't know. It seems that way when I go out and see everybody in their masks. Back to this. As part of the now agreed to study, the government is being asked to disclose a host of emails, documents, notes, and other records from the Prime Minister's office and Privy Council office, Health Canada and Public Health Agency of Canada, as well as from the Cabinet Minister's offices since mid-March. The motion passed 176 to 152. Reacting to the vote, Government House Leader Pablo Rodriguez accused the opposition of playing partisan games again, and said the Liberals have disappointed other parties, didn't listen to health and private sector concerns. Though in an interview on CTV's Power Play, sponsor of the motion, Conservative MP and health critic Michelle Rempel Garner said that the success of her motion is an example of Parliament doing its job. This information is necessary. This is a wonderful step for Canadians that ultimately will keep them healthier and safe, she said. She's no Marco Mendocino. She's not as polished as Marco. Marco would be able to spin this. She's trying to spin this as a win. I don't think this is a win necessarily. I think that even passing the motion is one. Welcome to the filibuster, right? Well, we've sent a communication to party leaders. We need to find a way forward without this, or we're going to an election. That's the line, right? Like you can frame this as a win, but all you did is get a vote passed. You haven't got the documents yet. So yeah, chickens hatched, right? I don't know there, Michelle Rempel. Mendocino would spin it, right? He would already be accusing the Conservatives, and he's a pro, man. He would already be accusing the Conservatives of delaying for whatever reason. He would already be spinning it and saying the Conservatives are going to play games. They're not going to give us the documents, and we hope that they blah blah blah. They play play this straight or whatever. Be as upfront as we would be, or some other garbage line that makes them sound like morally superior. Because that's the way he plays it. Okay, Jason Kenney. I don't know what to make of Jason Kenney. I'll show you why. Jason Kenney, Alberta's government has effectively shut down the temporary foreign workers program during this job crisis. It's more important than ever that Albertans come first for available jobs, right? Cue the crazy left to go, we can't have that. Albertans live in Alberta. Okay. Oh my goodness. Alberta imposes, right? That was October 26th. This tweet was sent 14 hours ago. Today's the 27th, so that was the 26th. On the same day, Alberta imposes new social gathering restrictions after setting daily record for COVID-19 cases. Alberta brought in new mandatory limits of 15 people at most social gatherings in Edmonton and Calgary on Monday after the province reported 1,440 new cases of COVID-19 over the weekend, including a record of 572 on Saturday. The province also had a record of 4,477 active cases on Sunday, an increase of 826 from the total seen on Thursday. I don't know what they mean by active cases. I've got their numbers here. And they've got but the active cases are that many, and your hospitalizations and ICUs are 118 and 16. So, what does active cases mean? Are they in the hospital, or they're just at home? Because if they're just at home, I don't know, man. I don't know. Are they sick? Symptomatic? How sick? Back to this. A total of 7 additional deaths were reported over the 3-day period from Friday to Sunday. So that's like 2.1, 2.2 per day. 2.3 per day. So 2.3 deaths per day, and you're going to lockdown? Alberta? Really? Quote, you've heard me say, back to the article many times, that we need to achieve a balance between minimizing the risk of COVID-19 and minimizing the risk of harms of restrictions. Dr. Dina Hinshaw, the province's medical officer of health, said at a local news conference on Monday. This requires us to keep the spread of COVID-19 manageable. We have now crossed a tipping point and are losing the balance we have been seeking. The weekend's COVID-19 numbers tell the story clearly. We identified on average 480 cases of COVID-19 per day over the weekend. Fear, fear, fear. But what does a case translate to? How many hospitalizations? How many deaths? Right? None. Right? Or, right? 307 deaths in total for the entire period. How many over the last 10 days? How many since September 1st? Is it worth it to give up our freedoms and right to gather, right to be humans in order to fight this virus? Is it okay just on this one person say so to do this for all of Alberta? This is just wild, right? This is wild. This is totally inappropriate. We are locked in our own homes due to single people say so. Unbelievable. Back to this. The new 15-person limit in Calgary and Edmonton apply to gatherings where people are mixing and mingling, Hinshaw said, such as dinner parties, birthday parties, social events, weddings, and funeral receptions, retirement parties, and baby showers. The limit does not apply to dining in restaurants or to theaters or to worship events or weddings and funeral service, but does apply to gatherings before or after such events, such as wedding receptions or a social event at a restaurant. Don't be human. Go and be consumers. Go to a restaurant and sit by yourself in your bubble because that's somehow safe. But don't you be human and talk to other people. Don't you do that. That's illegal, don't you know? Welcome to Canada, 2020. Limits will be reassessed in a month. Your freedoms will be reassessed in a month. Don't complain or they'll be curtailed further. Thank you, citizen. Back to this. We're following the evidence and implementing a targeted measure that will help reduce transmission and limit the risk of cases growing exponentially in both cities. Bull. You have no evidence that this is true. In fact, you have the evidence that it's not true. Right? Like, come on. We've gone through one lockdown and look where we're at, right? Another lockdown is going to fix this where, some people can go to restaurants and stuff so long as they're not mingling, right? And if they put their face in their t-shirt as they run to the bathroom between bites, right? Come on, morons. It is so stupid. It is so stupid that it's beyond the pale now. And they've got these numbers here, but no link to this website, right? They've got here, latest numbers. 364 new cases and 572 on Saturday and 504 on Sunday. And it's got the latest regional breakdown on active cases, right? Active cases. Look at all these active cases. Why active cases? Because that's the biggest number they've got here, right? Current hospitalizations, 118. Current ICU, 16. Total deaths, 307. I think it's mildly funny they use a black square for the deaths. I don't know. Black, gray. I don't know. This is all suspect. These numbers do not show me I would love to have somebody put the 2018 flu season or the 2017 flu season into this bucket here. How many active cases and how many hospitalizations and deaths and ICU if there were ICU. I'd love that. I would love that just to compare. Quebec is using long-term care homes to house COVID-19 patients who aren't residents. Because, that worked so well in New York, right? That worked really well for Governor Cuomo. They really kicked up those death rate numbers. And we need that to get people like me to shut up, right? Because, the deaths here in Ontario compared to cases just ain't what they used to be. Ain't what they used to be. Right? Back to this. Sorry. Oh, wrong one. This one. Regional health agencies in Quebec are asking public long-term care homes to establish hot zones to accommodate COVID-19 patients who don't live in those facilities. But some staff members and family members, scared by treatment of residents during the first wave, worry the move could lead to cross-contamination and more outbreaks inside the home. This is me. So we brought in these 10 COVID patients, and now we have an outbreak in this home, and you're not allowed to visit anymore. And it could be for the next 28 days, but it could also be for the next 6 months. And why are you complaining, citizen? We're going to reassess your freedoms next month. I mean, come on. Why are you complaining? What's wrong? You don't have any recourse, right? Like, you don't have any recourse if the Quebec government's mandating this, right? Back to this. Quote, why would you let them in where there's so many vulnerable people, said an employee of a long-term care home in Quebec. CBC News agreed not to publish the person's name because they fear professional repercussions, of course. The employee said at least 4 COVID-19 patients from the community were already admitted over the weekend to a hot zone established in what used to be a daycare center at the center at that place. Sorry, I'm not going to try it. We're doing all this to keep COVID-19 out of the building, and now we're bringing it inside, they said. The local health agency didn't respond to a request to confirm the news, but other health networks are confirming they're setting up red zones in long-term care homes for patients from the community. So welcome to the new normal. Don't like it? Leave. Oh, wait, you're not allowed. Ha ha ha. Some Quebec businesses, though, 200 fitness businesses in Quebec say they intend to open despite the COVID-19 restrictions. This is the only way forward. Civil disobedience is the only way forward. If you just take off your mask, if you just open your business, if you say, give me the fine and I'll see you in court, get out of my store, then we may win. We may still lose. There's no guaranteed path forward. Fight over social distancing led to murder in Toronto LCBO parking lot. That's terrible. That's awful. I couldn't imagine. And this is terrible, right? And part of the reason that I hesitate to go to Toronto, really. And I don't like that I hesitate so much, but man, I don't want to get shot, and you're a lot more likely to get shot there. This is from Britain, and the reason I'm showing this to you is because in the UK there have been a lot of people who are wondering, like, these testing sites are empty. These testing sites are completely empty, and they're taking pictures of these empty testing sites. And I lived by the COVID testing site. It was down the road from me in my city. And you know what? It wasn't that busy. And I called them and I said, how many people in there through the day? And they told me the number was 400. 400 people tested a day. I said, 400 people tested a day. And I started driving by. If there's 400 people being tested there, those cars being parked there sure stay there for long periods of time. How long could they wait for tests? You know, and it was like a lot of the same cars daily. I don't know. It was one of those things where I'm a skeptic. Here's Donald Trump Jr. He said he's responding to a Daily Mail online tweet. He says, has COVID killed off the flu? Influenza cases nosedived by 98% across the globe. Donald Trump says we went from 75,000 flu deaths last year in America to almost zero. Does anyone actually believe that? Or do you think that there may be allocation games being played to manipulate the truth? I like that he says manipulate the truth instead of just to lie about things. Premier Ford says Ontario MPP who posed maskless in group photo will not be demoted. No, he didn't mean to. It was his family after all, right? Rules for you and not for me, just like Patty Haydu. Remember? Here she is when she was traveling. Remember at the beginning of the lockdown, and Patty Haydu flew back and forth to Ottawa despite the rules not to do that. Everybody was in lockdown and she was saying, you should stay locked down. It's really important, blah, 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 blah. And then the other day when she was at Pearson Airport and she wasn't wearing a mask, but then she said, don't worry, I was eating, but there was no food in the picture. Remember that? Rules for you guys, but not for the leaders, right? And it shows you how serious this COVID-19 thing really is, doesn't it? Like, it shows you that they may know something that is staring us right in the face, right? The numbers of deaths, the number of everything. Here's some hodgepodge stories just to finish us off for the last for the day here. Here's an opinion piece that I thought was interesting. Liberals plan to replace fossil fuels with wind and solar is technically impossible and economically disastrous. But see the opening clip of Ms. Freeland and realize that she doesn't care. She doesn't care. A fresh wave of layoffs is pushing Albertans to the edge and in danger of losing their homes. This I was going to put with the Alberta stuff earlier, but it didn't really fit in with the COVID stuff, but it's still worth mentioning. If Alberta begins to sell their houses in a financial panic, we could start to see defaults happen as early as this year. I've said before, follow the money. If this is a self-inflicted wound, Alberta has been under attack by the government since they took office in 2015, with pipelines being delayed and the rail blockades, etc. It's so many problems, just been absolutely a disaster in Alberta. And the COVID stuff is just the cherry on the top. So what happens when all those properties default? Right? We've got you can walk in as a foreign backed buyer and buy an entire neighborhood. Why not? Right? Cheap because it's bankrupt, right? It's very concerning. It's very concerning, and there's precedent. You can look into BC for when locals are priced out, foreign-backed buyers come in and snap up the properties, right? And it's cheap for them. CBC Vancouver, a former CSIS intelligence officer, told Global News that he was concerned about donations to the Trudeau Foundation from a Chinese tycoon. Been talking about the Biden model, I think it's BYG model the Chinese target foreign political leaders and either buy them off or blackmail them, or buy them off and blackmail them in order for them to be their assets. The BC casino money laundering, it's called the Vancouver method. It's all run through China. If you think that this is not a problem in Canada, I've got some swampland to sell you. I don't even have swampland, but I'm sure I could find some swampland. Here's just international news again. A bunch of people, including Amazing Polly, were scrubbed from YouTube, and now there is a federal injunction. There's been an emergency injunction filed against YouTube to stop the purge. The lawsuit was crowdfunded through Punch Google, so I thought that was interesting. So if you're interested in free speech, that's interesting. And 7 days before an election, 8 days yesterday, Donald Trump gets Supreme Court justice, his third pick, confirmed to the Supreme Court 7 days before an election. I think this was done, personally, this is my personal opinion, I think this was done just to show Obama that Trump could do it. I think he probably wanted it to be done like 2 days before the election, like as close to the election as possible, just to say, this is what I can do, right? This is the magic wand Trump has. And I think that that's interesting, right? Like, Trump is the kind of person that planned this in 2012 when Obama was making fun of him at the Washington press dinner. He was the butt of jokes for like 3 minutes, and he was pissed. He was very angry. And stuff like this is how Trump gets back at people. And isn't that interesting? I think that that's interesting, because he's not gonna stick it to Obama. Like, he's not gonna do anything, but he's gonna hold Obama's gaze 1 second longer than he needs to, and he's gonna know, and Obama's gonna know why, and that's it. And Trump wins. 3 SCOTUS, like, that's a lot. That is very, very substantial. He's changed that court. He's flipped the court conservative, and for a generation, he's put young conservative justices on who were good picks by all rights. And I don't know what else you would want in a leader. Honestly, I really don't. I like these people who are screaming, and these people who are singing on TikTok that they're going to hurt people and stuff, and they're saying that they're fighting against his tyranny. You know, it's a very sick world. It's a very interesting situation to behold, and to have people who think that they represent the correct people, not the right, but that they represent the moral good of the world, right? And it's just like, wow, you really don't. And you don't see that? Okay. Wow, it's weird. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. That's my scratch pad where I'm working on things. And SpeakingMoistly.co. That's my conversational show with Greg Wycliffe. And we should be recording today, I hope. And so that should be up later tonight. And have a wonderful, wonderful